Hey everybody, it's Mr. Wagstaff. Cool stuff to talk about today. So as promised, today we're going to talk about World War II, everything that happened in the Pacific. So yesterday we talked about World War II and the entire European theater. Today we're going to talk about the Pacific theater. While these do happen simultaneously, is the easiest way to learning them as two separate wars, even though they are happening simultaneously. So yesterday, at the end of the war in Europe, when VE Day, FDR had passed away and his vice president, Harry Truman, had taken over. So, since we're going back in time now from 1945 back to 1941, FDR is back alive. We're going all the way back to December 7th, 1941, with the attack on Pearl Harbor, and we're going to learn today everything that happens from December 7th, 1941 to VJ Day, September 2nd, 1945. Let's get started. So I wanted to start here with a map to understand the war in the Pacific is a lot of ocean. There's a lot more Navy involvement here, like 99% more Navy involvement here in the war in the Pacific against Japan than is in Europe. Obviously, because there's a lot of islands and a lot of different places that Japan owns, whereas most of the fighting that's going to take place in Europe is going to be on land with the Army. However, we are going to focus very heavily on the Army and that specific part of invasions and the things that happen here in World War II in the Pacific. Still, even though the Navy plays a big part, but in a survey course, Battle of Midway and Battle of Coral Sea and Chester Nimitz, all these fantastic, very important events and people just don't get covered in a survey course. So tons of cool stuff if you want to go Google it that we just won't be able to cover here. We are going to talk about Douglas MacArthur though. So Douglas MacArthur is stationed at the Philippines. All right. So the Philippines are south of Japan here, and so the Philippines, America has owned them since the Spanish-American War. They have oil. This is what Japan wants. So Japan goes directly from attacking us on December 7th, 1941, over to the Philippines to take it over so they have oil. Douglas MacArthur is in the Philippines. All right, he is stationed there permanently with a bunch of American troops. When Japan shows up to take it, there's no United States Navy to defend it because it had been blown up in Hawaii at the attack on Pearl Harbor. So he's basically fighting a losing battle when Japan goes in, and it's very obvious from the beginning that Japan is and Baton is the area here that America is secured at. That Japan's overwhelming the forces. MacArthur is destined to stay here and fight it out with his troops. He's not going to leave. But it ends up not being his choice. See, Douglas MacArthur here is a very gifted general. He's a jerk as a person. He's just like your cranky old granddad. The old person that nobody likes. Get off my lawn, like spraying kids with water hoses. That's MacArthur. He's not a likable person, but he is a military genius. I'll give him that. And he is very gifted militarily. So the big problem is, while we can lose troops and survive, you can't lose your generals. So once everything blows up, we go to war. George Marshall, again, in the United States, who runs everything from the home, he needs MacArthur to be in charge of all these things that's going to happen in the Pacific. But MacArthur is like under siege here by the Japanese in the Philippines. So they're sending a special forces unit to basically rescue Douglas MacArthur, not his men. They can't get his men out, but they can get Douglas MacArthur out. And Douglas MacArthur, when they show up to get him out, he's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving my men. And special forces guys like, FDR and George Marshall said you might say that. So they gave us the right to shoot you in your kneecaps and drag you out of here if you say no. And then MacArthur's like, well, fine, I guess I'll go. And he does leave the Philippines, but he is really upset about the fact he had to leave his men. And he famously, whenever you Google anything on MacArthur, his famous quote is, "I shall return," because he knows he left his men there in the Philippines, and he's like, we lost the Philippines. I'm going to come back and get them. I'm going to come back and I will resecure them. We will get the Philippines back. So we lost it, but we will get it back. So MacArthur leaves, and is going to play a very pivotal role in this war. Whenever there is an invasion of an island or this island hopping campaign that we will talk about, this is all Douglas MacArthur's idea. So he is a pivotal role here as the head commander of the war in the Pacific. So the question here is, why was the focused American rescue mission of Douglas MacArthur, why was there one, and not a focused rescue mission of the rest of the troops that are in the Philippines? Basically, what is special about MacArthur? And it's the fact he's a general, he has a skill set that's not easily replaceable. So pause me, answer that, and we're moving on. All right, kamikazes. Kamikaze means divine win in Japan. So America, we had won a couple very big naval battles because Japan's Navy was bigger than ours at the start of the war. It really comes down to aircraft carriers. They had more aircraft carriers than we did. But after the Battle of Midway, huge turning point of the war, we're basically able to wipe out most of Japan's Navy. They can't really fight back anymore against our aircraft carriers. Because aircraft carriers are crazy dangerous, all right? Because it's like a beehive. If an aircraft carrier gets close to land, all the little fighter jets can go off and wreck shop, like what happened at Pearl Harbor. Without an effective Navy to stop the aircraft carriers from coming across the ocean after the Battle of Midway, a battle we don't really talk about in the survey course, Japan gets desperate, and they turn to this concept of kamikazes. So kamikazes are suicide bombers. All right, they're going to get in a plane that has bombs on it, and they are going to, like a man-driven predator drone, slam their planes into aircraft carriers to try to sink them because they don't have a Navy that can stop them. You might be somewhat aware of that. What you might not realize is that all the kamikazes are volunteers. Nobody was forced to do this. But this sacrifice for your country was a big part of the concepts of kamikazes. This is a group of kamikaze pilots in World War II. There were a lot of kamikaze pilots had volunteered that weren't used. Like they had more kamikaze pilots than they had planes available for them to destroy. So I don't know from this picture. This is a picture of a colorized picture of kamikaze pilots in World War II. I don't know if any of these guys survived or if they all did. I don't know the backstory of this picture, but it wasn't like a forced thing, which is what really freaks out America because the pilots, and you have like schoolgirls out here giving flights. Like this wasn't a secret. Like everybody knew what these guys were going to do. And you take off. You only have enough gas to get out here in the middle of the ocean, far away from the Japanese mainland. All right. And what they would do is they'd fly way up in the sky and then come straight down on top of ships. So even if you shot it, they would still crash land on the ships, and they would take out battleships pretty easily. But what they were aiming for is the aircraft carriers. Rarely, because America only has a handful of them. These are the new toys at the time. So it was rare for the kamikazes to get a hold of an aircraft carrier, but it did happen. We actually lost an aircraft carrier, and this is a picture of a big hole blown in the side of an aircraft carrier that's going to sink because of a single kamikaze pilot. This is a picture from the other side as that aircraft carrier slowly sinks. All the people on top of this ship, they all make it out. They all survive because they made it to the top. They get to the lifeboats and get out. The real danger is the people that get trapped below that do not make it out when these things happen. But like all the people up here on the top of this deck, because this ship's massive, it takes hours and hours for it to sink. All the guys on the top of the deck are able to get in lifeboats and get off safely, but there's a lot that get trapped below. The problem here is how do you fight people who aren't afraid of dying? Because that is exactly what the kamikazes are. How in the world is somebody going to surrender if they're choosing to die on their own? And this really starts to concern America as we get closer to Japan. The fighting just gets vicious and vicious. Japanese soldiers don't surrender. They just either fight to the death or commit suicide. And America realizes the closer we get to Japan, the fighting is going to be a level of intensity that we're not really prepared for. The Germans, when they get beat, surrender. The Japanese don't surrender. They just keep fighting and they never admit defeat. how are you going to defeat a country who will not admit defeat? So the question here is, why did the Japanese use of kamikazes worry America so much? Basically, what does our concern become here when they are willing to kill themselves to attack us? And then the other one here is, how does America respond? We're going to need help. See, in Europe, we're fighting with England, France, all our buddies. In the Pacific, we're pretty much on our own. Australia is helping us out. Respect to Australia here. But we're pretty much on our own, and we don't know if we can do this by ourselves, because we feel like we're going to have to invade Japan, and it's going to be crazy if we do, based on what we have seen moving closer to Japan. So that's the question. Answer that completely. Pause me, and we'll move on. So this brings us to the Yalta Conference. The Yalta Conference is incredibly important. So the Yalta Conference is very, very important. Let me say that again. It's very important. You need to know this. The Yalta Conference is the only thing, this meeting is what connects the war in Europe to the war in the Pacific. Otherwise, they would be almost completely separate. This is the only thing that connects them. So it's 1945. The war in Europe is going well. We've basically gotten into France. We're wrecking shop. Hooray. And the writing's on the wall that Hitler's going to be defeated. In the Pacific, it don't look like that. We don't really know what's happening. So there's going to be a meeting, and it's on a completely separate topic. And it's in Yalta, all right, which is in Europe, all right? And the big three show up. Winston Churchill on the left here, he is the leader of England. You have FDR here. So FDR is going to die about a month and a half after this picture is taken. He's already got polio again. He's struggling. Yeah, he's smoking a cigarette in this picture. Cigarettes ain't going to take him out. Just let the man have a cigarette. Let's not judge him. And then to the side of FDR is Stalin. This is like the first picture ever of Stalin sitting down that I've ever seen, and I think ever was. And he doesn't seem very happy about sitting down. But Stalin, let me move so you can see this. Stalin is sitting down out of respect for FDR. Because when you meet FDR, you sit down. Why? Because he's in a wheelchair and he can't stand. So even Stalin has respect enough for FDR to sit down. There's going to be a lot of tension between America and Stalin afterwards, but Stalin does have respect for FDR. They're clearly rivals, but they have respect. We're technically all on the same team here. So what has happened is Hitler had invaded Russia. Doesn't go well for Hitler. He gets stopped at the Battle of Stalingrad, and then Russia starts racing in from the other side to take over all the stuff that Germany had taken from Russia, plus all these other countries like Poland, Czechoslovakia, all this other stuff, as Stalin races towards the middle of Europe to defeat Hitler. Stalin is basically one of the reasons this meeting gets called. Because when Stalin liberates Poland and Czechoslovakia and these other countries that Hitler had taken over, Stalin is claiming he's just going to keep those countries. It's like, those are mine now. They will be communist here in the Soviet Union. So all the countries that Russia owns, they're referred to as satellite nations, but all the countries that Russia owns are collectively referred to as satellite nations, and Russia plus their satellite nations is called the Soviet Union. But Russia and Stalin are claiming all these countries they liberate from German control, he's going to keep now. Winston Churchill's like, the crap you are. So he's like, America, we need to show them, have a meeting about this so we can talk about this, because even though the war is not technically over in Europe yet, a game plan needs to get put in place on how to handle this after the war. So extremely important meeting. So Winston Churchill, all right, shows up and is like, Stalin, I know you want to take over these countries. That's some bullcrap. It's not going to happen. America, tell them that's not going to happen. And FDR is like, oh. Hey, Winston, why don't you go take a walk for a minute? We'll be back. No, let the adults talk. So even though America and England are BFFs, America knows Russia's the only one that's going to be able to help us out with Japan. So Winston Churchill's probably a little irritated here that America is going to give in to the demands of Stalin, because that's clearly what's getting ready to happen here. But America needs to have a bartering chip to get Stalin to help out America with this invasion of Japan. So Churchill leaves, and FDR looks at Stalin and is like, all right, man, real talk here. Couple things. We will be willing to let you take over these countries that you've liberated, all right? If you promise me, all right, if you promise me to allow them to have free elections. And Stalin thinks about it and he says, okay, all right, I'll do that. I'll promise you, FDR, I will allow them to have free elections. He's not going to allow them to have free elections. He's going to completely, at the Potsdam Conference after the war, just say, nope, they're all going to be communist. FDR is dead. Stalin claims he made this promise with FDR, not America, so he doesn't have to honor it. Who knows? It's Stalin. He's a crazy dictator. Who knows if he actually means that or not? But he does promise to let them have free elections here. So there's also going to be this group after World War II that's going to be founded called the United Nations, which every country on Earth joins. Russia and America, it's already obvious, they're going to be the two superpowers when this thing ends, assuming that Japan gets defeated. You have to have both superpowers in this new organization for it to have any purpose, and Stalin likes to be a loner. Russia doesn't like to be involved in world affairs. So one of the rules is, if we let you have these countries, Stalin, you have to join the United Nations. Like, you can show up and just like throw poop or yell or do whatever crazy things that you want to. That's fine. You just need to be part of it. Stalin thinks about it and he says, all right, I can do that. FDR's like, cool. And then we need you to help us beat Japan. And Stalin's like, we're just now about to defeat Hitler here, and you want me to do another war? And FDR's like, yes, please. We need help with Japan because they're crazy. Now, Stalin looks at a map, realizes Japan has taken over like all of Asia. So he's like, so if I come help you defeat Japan, I get half of everything Japan owns, right? And FDR doesn't want this to happen, but he also doesn't want Stalin to say no. So he's like, we'll talk about it later. So Stalin's like, all right, I can have these countries, I'll join the United Nations, and I will help you with Japan. However, my troops are tired. We're about to beat Hitler here, and give us 6 months when the war in Europe here ends, because it's getting ready to end. It has not at this point when this is given up. 6 months from the end of fighting in Europe, let me get my guys rested, get them refreshed, move them to the other side of the country, because Japan's on the other side of Russia, and we will invade together 6 months after we beat Hitler, which ends up being November. So America here, and we're going to start talking about this, gets to the point where we could have invaded before probably the summertime of 1945. We'll get to that here in a second. But we don't. We just wait. And the big reason is because we have to wait till November for Russia to get involved. So that's why America, and we're going to talk about the island hopping campaign, very quickly kind of races across the Pacific. And we get basically on the doorstep of Japan and then just start waiting because we need Russia to get involved in November. Now, we really do not want to be friends with Russia. We do not want to do this with Russia. Gosh, because this is going to be there's so much drama after this, who owns what, can't stand Russia. But we don't think we can win without Russia. So, and if you're thinking atomic bomb in the back of your head, that doesn't exist at this point. That is not a player here, all right? When the atomic bomb is created, that is a big reason why we're going to use it, is to try to end the war before November so Russia doesn't get involved. So the question here is, explain why America needed Russia's help in World War II and why America had to wait until November of 1945 to invade Japan. So pause me, answer that completely, and we're moving on. So Douglas MacArthur comes up with this idea of the island hopping campaign. The island hopping campaign is, so Japan owns thousands of islands out here now. You don't need to take over all the islands. You just need to hop over the islands that aren't really important and just take over the important ones, because once Japan gets collapses, the Japanese Empire, once you take out Hideki Tojo, once you defeat mainland Japan, all the islands will fall on their own. So you don't have to take over all the islands. So you have to pick strategic ones. So not surprising, one of the very first strategic islands that Douglas MacArthur wants to take over, and this is Douglas MacArthur, is the Philippines. Mr. I shall return, and he does. America rolls up on the Philippines, and we are able to re-secure the Philippines with our Navy is stronger than the Japanese Navy at this point. So once we take over the Philippines, then we start trying to figure out how do we want to deal with Japan. So there is an island that we really want, is a relatively large island called Okinawa. Okinawa is very important to the United States military because it has a fully functioning airport. We need an airport so that we can bomb Japan. And you're thinking, but don't we just have aircraft carriers? We just drive an aircraft carrier close up to Japan. We don't need an airport. So aircraft carriers only take off little fighter jets, like little fast ones, has like a machine gun, maybe one little bomb on it, and that's it. To bomb somebody, you need a bomber. That's like the plane equivalent of like an 18-wheeler. It's a big, massive thing. It needs like a half-mile runway. Bombers cannot take off from an aircraft carrier. We want just like thousands of bombers taking off and landing non-stop, bombing the crap out of Japan. In order to do that, we need Okinawa because it has a fully functioning airport. Well, Japan knows that we want Okinawa, and they have tons and tons and tons of troops stationed here, as well as like it's a full civilization that lives in Okinawa as well. Lots of civilians. So America can't just roll up in ships coming from America and going to Okinawa to attack it. So we actually have to find an island to prepare for the attack on Okinawa. We find this little island, and this is a picture. It's called Iwo Jima. It means Sulphur Island. We're pretty sure there's Japanese troops on this, but just to make sure, we bombed the living crap out of Iwo Jima for like a month before we invade it. So the reason we want Iwo Jima is literally to go and set up shop, catch a breather, and prepare for the invasion of Okinawa, because Okinawa is what we really want, but this is our like staging ground. This is a very famous picture here. So we bomb it, nothing's twitching. We unload the ships, there's nobody on the island. Group of Marines go up and they put this very famous this flag on Iwo Jima, and a photographer takes a picture of this. Like America has this island. What's crazy is there's like 20,000 troops still on the island that have been hiding the entire time they've been bombed. They wait for the Americans to like get good and set up, and then they come out and there's vicious fighting takes place on Iwo Jima, like after this flag picture is taken, because they thought there weren't any Japanese people here. There were. 20,000 Japanese people get killed because nobody surrenders. Everybody that was on here like fought to the death, more or less. There's only like 200 Japanese that actually survive here, and usually they were like knocked unconscious and weren't able to kill themselves. It's bonkers. But Iwo Jima is secured. It's vicious battle. I mean, just insane. And then the preparation is underway to invade Okinawa. Okinawa, bigger island, more troops, more ridiculousness. This is a photograph of the invasion of Okinawa. It looks kind of like D-Day, which, I mean, it was a massive invasion of Okinawa. 110,000 Japanese soldiers are killed in Okinawa. Lots of civilians are killed as well. 8,000 American soldiers, 7,600 American soldiers are killed. Vicious fighting in Okinawa, but Okinawa is secured. This is a picture of soldiers in Okinawa. I'll back out here. Look at this picture. I want you to understand, these aren't 30, 40-year-old men fighting. These are 17, 18, 19-year-old young men that are similar age to high school students that are fighting here. These aren't grizzled veterans. These are just kids. And it's important to understand that in the context of history. So once we have Okinawa, though, we can start bombing Japan. And we start bombing them immediately and relentlessly starting in the summer of 1945. So the question here is, what was so important about Okinawa? What could take place if America controlled Okinawa? So pause me, answer that completely. We're moving on. So America is bombing the crap out of Japan. We kill over 1 million people, civilians. Now we are attacking at this point. We're attacking military installations, but over 1 million civilians get killed before the atomic bomb is used. All right. America is not just attacking military installations. It's real easy to vilify Hitler and all that when he's attacking civilians there in London with the Battle of Britain. America starts doing the same thing, hoping Japan will surrender. It just makes them angrier and more resolved to fight. So while this is happening, because we're having to wait, this is summer of 1945, we're going to have to wait till November before Russia comes and helps us out. J. Robert Oppenheimer is the head of the Manhattan Project. And he was like, holy crap, I think I got it. So this is J. Robert Oppenheimer. What he got, he thinks he developed the atomic bomb. So he runs to Truman and is like, oh my gosh, I have the atomic bomb. And Harry Truman's like, who are you? Now, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Obviously, the amount of money going into the Manhattan Project, the president knows who J. Robert Oppenheimer is. But when FDR, who has died at this point, FDR has now died, Truman has now taken over, VE Day is over, this is the only war we're fighting now, is the war in the Pacific, that Truman didn't even know we were attempting to build the atomic bomb until FDR died, and then he got the top secret memo left to him by FDR, building a big bomb, look out for this guy J. Robert Oppenheimer. So J. Robert Oppenheimer, he comes up and says, hey, I think we got it. And Truman's like, all right, does it work? And he's like, I don't know, haven't tested it. And he's like, well, before you bring me information, go test it. So J. Robert Oppenheimer goes out and makes the smallest version of this, because the material is really hard to come by because it's sciencey stuff. So they take the smallest amount they possibly can to detonate it to see what would happen. And they detonate it in the middle of the desert in Nevada. And this is the bomb that goes off. The first time it had gone off, this is miles and miles and miles away, and it is an itty bitty, small, I say it like this, I mean it was probably desk size, but it was the smallest version of the atomic bomb they could do just to make sure that the science behind it works. J. Robert Oppenheimer, very famously, and it looks like a typo, like Mr. Wagstaff and my typos, I do them all the time. This is not actual typo, it's his statement that he says as soon as he sees this. He famously says, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. So that is his famous, that's not a typo, that's exactly how he says it. He said, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. He's like, and he's not like, yes, I am an evil villain. It's like, he's horrified that he developed this. So while that was the smallest bomb possible, we make two, all right? This is one of the bombs, which is big as we can make it. And then the other one, all right, this is little man, this is fat boy. That's a person, I mean, this is an astronomically large bomb. It's so big, we actually have to design a special plane, all right, in order to carry it, not only to carry it and drop it, but then hit the nitrous thrusters to get out of there before the bomb goes off. So we had been bombing the crap out of Japan all the time. Once we know we have this weapon, they asked Truman, hey Truman, do you want to use it? Truman he says, yes, drop it now, all right? So Truman, there's two rationales for this, all right? The one he tells the public, and they're not both true, he's going to use the atomic bomb to save American lives. Meaning that if America invades Japan, we could lose upwards of 1 million troops going street to street. If you use the atomic bomb, American soldiers don't die. So he says to save American lives. Not to save lives, but to save American lives. Key point. Also, if we can drop the bomb and Japan freaks out and surrenders, we don't have to share anything with Russia because we are still in August. Russia's not getting involved until November. We are trying to finish this war now so that we don't have to share anything with Russia. So he says, absolutely, drop the bomb. the bomb is so big, there's nothing in context to show it to you. So these are the pictures I think are going to be most influential. This is a picture of Hiroshima before the bomb was dropped. It literally had not been bombed at all because we wanted to pick a place that had not been hit with any other bombs so we can see what the destructive nature of it is. We dropped the atomic bomb, the first one, on August 5th, 1945. This is a picture of the atomic bomb from the back of the Enola Gay. It's so big, there's nothing else in context here. So it may not be that impressive to you because it's just everything else would be too small to be seeing this picture. This is Hiroshima afterwards. So the bomb actually exploded above, because it explodes above land, above this building, and then went out and just wiped everything clean. So that's why this building is still there. We're actually aiming for the bridge here in the background, but it detonated over this building and basically just disintegrated the entire city. We then said, Japan surrender, and they said no. And we're like, we'll drop another one. They're like, we'll do it. 3 days later, we drop another bomb on another civilian city called Nagasaki. We say, Japan surrender. And they're like, no, we're not going to do it. And then we're like, we'll drop another. And they say, do it. And we're like, we will. And we say, okay. We don't drop. The only reason we don't drop a third bomb is we didn't have one. We only made 2. And they take a couple years to make because of, so we start making thousands at one time, but it's going to take a while before we can get any. Japan does end up surrendering. The emperor basically overrides the military, comes out, Emperor Hirohito, and says, America's got an immoral bomb, we surrender. Russia, when they saw our bomb, like, holy crap, Russia declares war on Japan. Now, they're not, but they do it legally so that when this war ends, they can claim they helped us, even though they don't actually do anything. And there's some political drama that takes place between us and Russia after this. But the question here is, and keep in mind, we dropped this on civilian populations in order to end this war, which it did. This is your opinion. Do you think dropping the atomic bomb was the correct course of action to end this war, meaning World War II? And then, do you think you would feel differently if you were not an American? And explain your answer on that. So that's what I got for you guys today. Answer that completely. See you guys tomorrow.